We'll go ahead and continue our media availabilities with Kevin Harvick, driver of the number 4 Busch Beer National Forest Foundation Ford for Stewart Haas Racing. Thanks for joining us, Kevin.
No problem. Thank you.
We'll go ahead and open it up for questions. If you have one, please raise your hand and we'll get to you. We'll start over here to the right.
Hi, Kevin. Rich Thompson, Boston Herald. You've won 2 of the last 4 here. How did it all come together for you on this track so quickly?
Well, it's just like anything else. You know, I can probably tell you the ones that we lost and felt like we should have won. And last year, you know, our car came around at the end of the race. We had a decent car all weekend, but we, you know, capitalized on, you know, some mistakes and a good car at the end of the race. So we've had a good car here a number of times. Just, you know, last year it finally all came together.
We'll come down here to Reed.
Reed Spencer, NASCAR Wire. It's sort of a follow-up to that. You're one of 6 guys in the field that has won here 3 times, often many years apart. Is there a feel that you developed for this track that sort of transcends types of cars and rule changes and that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, you know, I think, you know, racing is a lot like other sports. You go through spells of capitalizing on things and having good cars and mediocre cars and circumstances, and I think that, you know, part of the sport is those streaks come and go, and at certain racetracks, you know, at RCR we had a lot of good flat track races at Richmond and Loudon, and we only won here 1 time, and I thought this was one of our better tracks. So, you know, I think as you look at different racetracks, you know, I feel like we've always run fairly well here. I feel like we probably should have been to victory lane 10 times here. But, you know, you look at the results, and it's just hard to win these races. But, you know, over the last few years, obviously it's gone okay, and we've been on the right side of it.
Any other questions? Go to Lee.
Lee Spencer, RacingVoice.com. Wanted to ask you, they're putting PJ1 down on Pocono next weekend. How do you think that'll affect the racing there? And did you learn anything with the new configuration of the car that you and Rodney can take back next weekend?
Well, our car was extremely fast there last time, and the steering box broke. You know, so, you know, I feel like we had a lot to build on. For us individually as an organization and team, you know, we're still trying to recover from not being where we needed to be to start the season. So the progression for us has been rapid. You know, there's been a lot of different things that have been tried as we've gone over these last 2 months, and you know, we're still building and trying to get the cars, you know, exactly where we'd like them to be. But Pocono was definitely a race we could have won, you know, with the circumstances going right. And it seems like excuse me, it seems like on the days where we've had chances to win, we've just either made mistakes or we've you know, had something go wrong. So, you know, it's probably been 3 or 4, maybe 5 times this year that we've had those opportunities and just haven't capitalized on them. But Pocono was definitely one of those races. I feel like, you know, we've been able to hopefully make the car better than it was last time. I think we've done that every week. So, you know, I think as you go there with PJ1, a lot of that came from, you know, the meeting at Daytona with the communication from the drivers and NASCAR and everybody, you know, trying to figure out how to make the racing better there. And with these particular cars and the way that passing has been so difficult, you know, lanes are a good option, you know, for all of us to make the racing better. So, you know, I think from the outside looking in, the race is okay to watch. From inside the car, it's a little bit frustrating just because of how difficult it has been to pass at some of the racetracks. So I think with as much better as we are as a sport in adding the PJ1 at a lot of these racetracks and seeing the results that I mean, it was way better at Kentucky than it had been in the past. You look at this particular racetrack in Bristol, we've just done a lot better job, and you look at the science that goes into when you spray it, how you spray it, all the things that come into play. The long and short of the story is we've just become a lot better at the traction compound and the things that we do and when we put it down and where we put it down. And you see a lot more people open to it because it's more consistent. And we need lanes as drivers in order to go where the other car isn't in order to pass. And you know, I think that's really the reasoning behind Pocono. And you see them spray it all the way to the wall. here, and you know you saw it was better last week at Kentucky. It didn't get all the way up, but it at least gave you an option outside of the preferred bottom lane, and so you know I think we're making gains on it as a sport, and I think it'll be interesting because you never know how far out on the straightaway you need it, how far up you need it, and you just have to do it, and I think this will be a good step.
As spectators, we've seen the entertainment value with the intermediate tracks at an all-time high. I mean, certainly a lot better. They're producing better races than we've seen in quite a while. Looking at the Gen 7 car, is there a lot that we need to change for that particular intermediate track package, do you think, when we look at 2020?
Well, I think, you know, I think a lot of it is just drivability, and I think that's everybody's focus right now is just drivability in traffic to make the driver more useful in the car. You know, I think everybody knows that, and everybody's working on that, and I think that's one reason that the PJ1 is such a necessity, and you know everybody's been so open to it because you just want to make it better. So yes, I would agree that the mile and a halves are better to watch for sure, especially if we have cautions.
We'll come right down here to the left and then go over to Jeff.
Hi, Kevin. Terrell Covey of the Portsmouth Herald. You've been a strong advocate for drivers kind of going to the grassroots tracks and you know, getting out there. And we had Christopher Bell up in Vermont this weekend. Could you talk a little bit about why you're so passionate about that and what you think the benefits of drivers getting out to these tracks are?
Well, one, it's awareness. Two, it's in my opinion, and this is really how the conversation started when this you know, kind of took off a couple years ago at Phoenix and after the race. You know, I think that the biggest reason to me is the fact that Winston used to cover, you know, a lot of the expenses and shortfalls that a lot of these short tracks had, and when Winston went away, and that connection between the Winston Racing Series and the Winston Cup Series started to separate, you know, through the years, and it took time for that to dwindle, and racing has changed, and you don't have that you know that same short track connection that you had. So, in my opinion, that you know that's where a lot of the grassroots fans live, and I feel like there's been a huge disconnect over the last 5 or 6 years of participation, you know, from you know what's happening here and what's happening there. And really, you know, I've said this a number of times. You know, running the K&N races, you know, a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, really. You know, you really started to hear that opinion of, you know, we just need some help here. And, you know, you hear so many race fans talk about, you know, they don't like when this driver comes and runs this series or that series, but the competitors actually do like it, you know, because it brings attention to their series. Attention to their series brings more people to the stands. More people in the stands brings more value to a sponsorship. So, you know, for us, we've had a lot of success with our short track series contingency programs. I think we have 3 of them now. We have, you know, one in the Spears SRL series. We have one at Stafford Speedway, you know, and then we have one with, you know, Bill McAnally and his track in California. So it's, you're talking about, you know, $125 to $150 at a time. But when you can take the 13th place driver like we do at Stafford and make him make the same money as the 6th or 7th place driver, that's a pretty big deal, you know, to that guy who's running mid-pack, struggling to get to the racetrack, and maybe he paid for, you know, 1 or 2 tires that night, and you know, so it's you're not talking about a lot of money. I tell a lot of people this when we deal with our foundations and the things that we do at our public high schools, especially at home. It doesn't take a lot of money, and some of it just takes time, and so. The short tracks to me is has a direct effect on TV ratings, fans in the grandstands, especially in the local market, and you see a lot of these racetracks participating, you know, with their local markets and whether they're dirt tracks or asphalt tracks or whatever it may be, and drawing all that together is important for the health of the sport and racing in general.
We'll go to Jeff, over here to Mike, and then we'll wrap up in the back.
Jeff Gluck from The Athletic. Kevin, the way you guys race now, I mean, you guys are driving each other down to the apron the entire race, not just at the end. I mean, all over the track, side drafting, all the stuff. When did that start? Like, I feel like it wasn't that way 10 years ago, unless I'm wrong.
No,
When did
you're not. Yeah. If you'd have drove like this 10 years ago, you'd have had a fist in your mouth. But
So
Go ahead.
when did this all change? I guess it changed rapidly at some point, but I don't know what changed or how.
well, what changed were the rules. And when every spot becomes that much more difficult to achieve, you have to defend the spots that you have because you know that you might not get it back, and you know that you have to. Blocking is a part of what we do. Defending your position is a part of what we do, and it's just an evolution of where the rules package is. And heck, I had a blown motor last week, broken engine, and was only 0.3 off the pace. So, you're talking about small amounts of time, and especially on the mile-and-a-half racetracks where, if you can keep somebody behind you, and that comes with side drafting and blocking and all those things that if they're directly behind you, there's no way they'll pass you because of the aero.
Right down here to the right.
Mike Cronin, WMUR. Kevin, I know it's the middle of summer, but at least for New Englanders, this is by far the hottest weather we've had. Does the heat play any factor in how you approach the race this weekend?
I think it'll come into play a little bit with the handling of the car. I think as you look at it, I always look forward to coming up here because it's always the cooler portion of the summer stretch. And the last couple of years we've gone to Chicago and you come here and those have been our hottest races as we've gone through the summer. So it's it's definitely the heat for us inside the car is not going to be something that's abnormal this time of year. For the fans, it's going to be abnormal in this portion of the country. But I think as you look at it, it'll be interesting to see where the grooves go and how the cars fall off, because I think handling will be a little bit more difficult with the temperatures up like they will be.
We'll go ahead and wrap up with this last question.
Rich Thompson, Boston Herald. Just talk about team continuity with Rodney that you've had over the years.
Yeah, I think where you see that really come into play, especially this year when things didn't get started off well, we've had things not go 100% right. You have that connection and that communication to be able to productively work on things and keep things moving in the right direction. And we've definitely done that. We haven't been to victory lane, but we've slowly but surely progressed in the right directions. And that's really where you see that continuity and that relationship and experience as a group together pay off.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks.
Good luck this weekend.